And also thanks to your FABS and the SGI for inviting me to give a talk on this Union Budget 21-22 implications for food and agribusiness ecosystem. Particularly, my thanks go to Professor Pratap Reddy Garu, who requested me about, I think almost 2 weeks before it seems. He said, please accept, our people will contact you like that. He said, even though I was busy with some other things, I thought it's apt to address you all. In the last week, I was addressing the eGrow webinar series. eGrow, you might be knowing, it's a reputed non-profit organization which is into the area of policy making. There also this Union Budget 21-22 was discussed. Now what I do is, for the benefit of all of you, I will first try to give you the importance of a budget, and then we will look at the macro aspects of budget, and then we will dive down to the focus of this talk, that is the implications for food and agribusiness ecosystem. Because in a globalized world, and also in a globalized, or what you can say, highly interconnected economy, you cannot look at any sector alone or separately or in a silo. So we need to look at the other things as well. So keeping that in view, I feel we should first understand the importance of a budget and how this particular budget of 21-22 has come up, and what will be the important implications of this union budget. And then we'll try to look at the focused area of food and agribusiness. You all know, as humans have evolved, we have tried to understand the importance of organized way of living, organized way of economic living, and to meet the unlimited human wants, how production processes have to be evolved. And at the same time, how the scarce resources that are available on this earth have to be more prudently used to meet these unlimited human wants. So since then, in the last, I think 2 centuries more particularly, we have seen the governments have donned the role of welfare states. Of course, before 2 centuries, we were having kings, emperors, different way of ruling us, and organized way of managing these societies. But if you look at the recent history of around 2 centuries, all across the world, we see organized states, organized governments are coming up, and they are declaring themselves that they want to provide welfare to their states, to their citizens. So when a government decides or declares or states that it is a welfare state, it assumes large responsibilities. So the responsibilities are multifarious. In the process, the government needs large amount of resources. So what happens is, when the government has to deliver, to provide various kinds of services and facilities and promote the economic activities in that economy, the government needs resources. And when it finds the resources, it also has to find out the ways to use those resources. So essentially, this budget making activity is a kind of identifying the resources and spending those resources to provide the required services. Essentially, you all know, in any economic activity, capital plays a very important role. Of course, the human population is the human capital that is available, but we need to, the government needs to manage those human capital available with it in a very prudent way. So the budget is one important activity that is being undertaken by all the governments across the world. Any format of government, they always go for budgeting. So in the same process, India has also taken up this union budgeting activity. Ours is a federal setup, you all know that. And the states also have their own budgets. But interestingly, in this country, we give more importance to the union budget rather than to our state budgets. But as a student of economics, I feel we should also give more importance to the state budgets, because state budgets are more towards welfare and provisioning of the basic services to the people in their states. Whereas the union budget, much of it goes towards defense, all other kinds of activities, law and order, judiciary, peacekeeping, managing the huge administrative setup. So a lot of expenditure goes towards there also. And moreover, as the taxes are collected by the union government, a substantial portion, as per the 14th Finance Commission recommendations, 45% goes to the states again. So we need to look at the efficiency of the budgets of the states also. But we have developed a tendency in India to always look at the union budget and we ignore the state budgets. But we should change that, the very nature of the Indians looking at only the union budget and ignoring the state budgets. Anyway, that's not a major worry here. So with this few introductory words about the importance of union budget. Of course, if you look at the history of union budgets in India, the central government in India, that means the union government in India, in the last 6 to 7 decades has focused on the provisioning of various basic infrastructural facilities. Even if you look at the contribution of various 5-year plans, when the National Planning Commission was functioning, of course, now they have changed it to Niti Aayog, you already know that. So during that time, the 5-year plans, typical to the Soviet Union plans, were functioning in this country. Of course, when we got independence, the forefathers during that time, they were influenced by the Soviet model. Particularly Nehru was a fan of Soviet model. So he brought that idea of 5-year plans, which the Soviet Russian people during those times, the communist people, they used to do that. But now all over the world, societies have changed, the governments have changed. The same Soviet Union has now become democratic. It has disintegrated into several countries. So now in India also, we are also changing. So in the last 6 to 7 years, the NDA government has brought this union budget in a different way. We also know that in the earlier times, that means before this NDA 2 version, the railway budget was exclusively presented, separately presented. But the NDA government has now thought that it should be included within the single union budget. So this is how some changes they have made. This particular union budget to 2021-22 assumes greater significance. Why? The reason is it is presented in the backdrop of a pandemic, the COVID pandemic. The whole world has suffered. India has also suffered economically as well as in terms of health. So the people wanted a healing touch. And also the entire society, the entire economy wanted a big push for the economic activities to rejuvenate and come back in vigor. So that is why, as the Union Finance Minister herself, Madam Nirmala Sitharaman, she herself said it will be a once in a century budget. So in that way, she created a lot of hype around this union budget. Of course, there were large expectations. People like us, economic thinkers, were all thinking that there will be a huge push for job creations. There will be a huge push for irrigation infrastructure, so that the large mass of this population can get more jobs and more economic activities, so that there will be a big push towards economic output, and in the process, demand also, aggregate demand also will pick up. That was the expectation. Unfortunately, we did not see any kind of a huge major announcement in terms of irrigation infrastructures. But one good thing which we notice from this budget is they have focused more on the infrastructure. So let me move on to tell you what was the important thing in this budget. The major highlight of this budget is the capital expenditure. Around 5.5 lakh crores of capital expenditure this budget is coming up, and it is almost 34.5% higher than the earlier allocations. And the finance minister also says they have kept a reserve provision of 44,000 crores. And they also say that the finance minister also announced in the parliament, she is ready to provide another 2 lakh crores to the states and the autonomous bodies if they are showing good progress in the area of infrastructure spending or capital spending. So this is one notable feature or the takeaway from this budget. And definitely, this is going to give a huge boost for Indian economy in the years to come. As you all know, capital expenditure has got a greater multiplier effect. And this multiplier effect will be seen in the future days. It is not a short-term phenomenon. It is a long-term phenomenon. So in the next few years, couple of years, we will see the results of this capital expenditure spending that is announced by the union government. And one more interesting factor, the highlights of this budget has been the Atmanirbhar Bharat production-linked incentive schemes. And this scheme is covering around 13 important sectors, which are going to give a big push to the job creation. That's what the government claims. The finance minister also claims that this PLI scheme is specifically targeted to create more jobs. And even during the COVID time also, they have announced a COVID resurrection plan of 20 lakh crores. Under that also the PLI was focused, and they are focusing around 1.97 lakh crores to be spent under this incentive scheme for the companies to get more jobs, to create more jobs, and to provide more employment to the new, the youth of this nation. And the infrastructure, as has been the focus of this budget, the finance minister has announced that she will be going for starting one development financial institution, DFI. And for that, she has kept around 20,000 crores as the initial capital. So with this initial capital, she is going to build a huge monolithic development financial institution. Of course, if you look at the history, we have created very many development financial institutions, but they all failed due to various problems of red tapeism or so many other things. But we need to see how this new development financial institution that this government wants to bring in with an initial capital of 20,000 crores to meet the infrastructure needs of this nation. And they have also identified around 7,400 projects to cover under this infrastructure program. And of course, the urban infrastructure they are planning with a massive investment of 18,000 crores. Of course, this is required because India is urbanizing and a lot of population is migrating to the urban areas. So in such a situation, there is a need to provide the basic infrastructure in the urban areas as well. And ports and shipping and waterways, they are spending in that also. And they are increasing the public-private participation in these areas also. That's a good thing so that we can create more jobs in a swifter fashion. And railway infrastructure is also one interesting one. And they are coming out with Kisan rails, specifically targeted towards agriculture and to favor and enable the agricultural activities in the rural areas. So this railway infrastructure, which is around 1,10,000 crores, is a big investment. And this is definitely going to help the Indian economy in a very big way, because railways play a very important role as the cheapest means of transportation, as well as mass rapid transportation facilities. And of course, roads and highways also, they are focusing. This is also a good thing. And they have announced that around 1,18,000 crores will be spent for developing these road transportation and also big highways. And one more interesting infrastructure area is energy. And the government has announced that this International Solar Alliance, ISA, which is the brainchild of our Honorable Prime Minister Modi, they want to expand it and they want to give a big push so that the clean energy as per the climate change requirements, sustainable requirements, the clean energy can be encouraged, and energy sufficiency or energy stability can be provided, energy sustainability can be provided to this nation. And in that regard, they are now going for providing some more, I think 1 crore more beneficiaries to be covered under the Ujjwala scheme, which has been a flagship scheme of this NDA government. And new capital infusion measures they have announced. And one more interesting, it's an innovative budget, I feel so, because a lot of innovative ideas have come, particularly in the area of asset monetization. As you all know, government always goes with fiscal deficits. It requires huge resources. To meet those resources, innovation is very, very important in budget making activity. So this asset monetization is one interesting thing this time this budget has announced. And now coming to the allocations to agriculture, even though I personally expected huge investments in agriculture, now the budget says an amount of around 1,31,531 crores is going to be invested into the area of agriculture in different areas. And around 1 lakh crore agricultural infrastructure fund is going to be made available to the APMCs, Agricultural Produce Marketing Committees, for augmenting their infrastructural facilities, for facilitating the trade, and then warehousing, storing of the food grains, all these things they want to cover within this huge funding. And the focus of our discussion today is the third pillar in this budget. What is the third pillar that was announced on the day of the budget by the finance minister? It includes inclusive development and aspirational India. Particularly the rural areas in this country are aspirational people. They want to achieve, they want to come up economically. And that's why to meet those aspirations and to include all the people in the rural India, so they say that the inclusive development and aspirational India is the third important pillar of this budget. And accordingly, this time, a very high, massive target of 16.5 lakh crores of agricultural credit they have targeted through the various financing institutions, including your banks, scheduled commercial banks, regional rural banks, cooperative banks. All these institutions will be motivated to spend and provide credit to the extent of 16.5 lakh crores. This will be a huge boost. And also, this particular pillar announces that around 30,000 crores to 40,000 crores of Rural Infrastructure Development Fund, RIDF, that will be allocation. That will be the allocation, and that will be meant for developing the rural infrastructure, whether it is roads, whether it is warehousing activities, all such kind of needy infrastructure in the specific areas of the rural areas will be provided. And they have also set 10,000 crores of micro irrigation fund will be kept within NABARD for spending in the rural areas to encourage micro irrigation. And one more interesting thing in this budget is Operation Green Scheme. So under this Operation Green Scheme, the government wants to provide funding in the rural areas so that these perishable products like tomatoes, onions, potatoes, they have identified around 22 these kind of perishable products. They want to cover these products so that they can be stored efficiently, and there will be a benefit for the farmer in the entire process. So a kind of a good value chain they want to create, a supply chain. So value addition happens in this supply chain under this Operation Green Scheme. And they also claim that around 1,000 more mandis will be integrated with the eNAM scheme. So eNAM platform, you already know that, the electronic national agricultural market. So under that, they want to bring in 1,000 more mandis so that the farmer can get facilitated with this kind of information flow so that he can move his items to those mandis, and also he can sell at appropriate rate for his produce. And Agricultural Infrastructure Fund would be made available to these APMCs. That's what they have said. And they also say that 5 fishing harbors, major fishing harbors, will be identified at Kochi, Chennai, Visakhapatnam, Paradeep, and Petagat. So these will be developed as huge economic activity centers. This is a good thing. There are a number of fishery farmers in this country. They will get benefited with this kind of an important move. And third pillar, of course, again, continues to say that fisheries will be a focus area, and to develop fishing harbors and fish landing centers. And they also want to do that in the waterways and rivers inside also, that is inland activities. They also want to promote the seafood cultivation, particularly in Tamil Nadu. They want to have this multi-purpose seafood park to be established in Tamil Nadu because there is a huge demand for this seafood. And they also say the government had, I think the Prime Minister in the last year, he announced, he inaugurated one Swamitwa scheme. This is very important. The poor farmer should have proper documentation for his land holdings. So that is given free of cost with proper documentation of its boundaries, everything using these new technologies. And this is now being extended to all the villages and all the states and union territories. So this is a very nice move, and particularly the small farmer and the marginal farmer, he will get benefited with this kind of an important scheme, what we call as the Swamitwa scheme. And one more important decision that the budget announces is that they want to reduce the margin money requirement from 25% to 15% for all the loans to the allied activities related to agriculture. This is very important for livestock or various other kinds of agricultural allied activity financing. This margin will be now brought down from 25% to 15%. This will be a great, I see, relief to all those agricultural allied farmers. And they have also announced the Agriculture Infrastructure and Development cess. This cess is not going to burden the common man with the common citizens. They have found out one innovative way so that will be again compensated by the government. But one interesting thing is this will be a dedicated infrastructure, agricultural infrastructure and development fund. So this is one good thing that we find in this budget. Now let me briefly focus on the important schemes, the outlay of the major schemes focused towards agriculture, and then I will start discussing these important moves and the implications of these measures. You might have noticed the Pradhan Mantri Krishi Sinchai Yojana. Now they are going with a massive funding of 11,588 crores. And they have also announced one price support scheme, that is MIS-PSS, around 1,501 crores. And another one big scheme is the crop insurance scheme. And I could see in some of the programs, the farmers have got benefited with this crop insurance scheme in some of the states. Maybe in some states, there are still some hiccups and problems. Now this time they have dedicated funding of 16,000 crores for this scheme. And interest subsidy for the farmers, especially the crop loans and all, they have earmarked around 19,500 crores approximately. And of course, you all know about the Kisan Samman Yojana. So under that 65,000 crores is there. Of course, some states have not participated in this. And this is a painful thing, which you already know. I don't want to cover that aspect. And the farmer producer organizations, FPOs, this is a very good move. And since last few years, this trend is developing, and farmers are coming together as organizations of producers, and they want to directly deal with the buyers. So this is a good move. And that around 700 crores is going to be provided to all these producer organizations to develop their, organizations and all. And they have also announced the agricultural mechanization, promotion of agricultural mechanization, especially the crop reduce management, crop residue management, that they want to focus with around 700 crores. And the agriculture infrastructure fund already is already there, and now 900 crores the government wants to pump in. And the crop science focus is there, and around 708 crores is being spent on it. And of course, the urea subsidy around 60,000 crores, and the nutrient-based subsidy around 21,000 crores, and the food subsidy to the corporation, the food corporation around 2,02,000 crores, very huge funding for that, because of the food security purposes. And of course, the food subsidy for decentralized procurement of food grains under the NFSA program, they are giving around 40,000 crores. And other small schemes are there, particularly for the sugar mill. I see the scheme to provide assistance to the sugar mills. They have around 2,000 crores. It is a new scheme to support the sugarcane farmers in different parts of the country. And they have also announced around 20,000 crores, as I read out earlier, the infrastructure development fund to be provided to the NABARD. And the Pradhan Mantri Kisan Sampada Yojana, they are around 700 crores. And one more interesting project, new scheme they have brought out, that is the Livestock Health and Disease Control Program, 1,470 crores. And Kisan Urja Suraksha Evam Uttan Mahabhiyan Yojana, that is around 776 crores. So in a nutshell, I can say that the government has tried to bring some innovative new schemes into this agriculture, but my expectations, and like me, several experts and economic thinkers' expectations were still higher, because agriculture is one important area which is accommodating huge population. So we need to take care of this huge sector, even though its contribution to the economy in terms of GDP might have come down drastically. There has been a structural change. You all know that. Earlier, around 50 to 60% of the GDP used to come from the agricultural sector, but nowadays it has gone down to below 15%. But why it has come down to such an extent? The reason is we have not taken care of this sector since independence in a rigorous way, in a sincere way. We have not created good infrastructural capacities, and capital spending has not gone into it. That's the reason why we are seeing a decline in the contribution of agriculture to the economy, particularly to the GDP. Now, what were my expectations? Particularly, I was expecting, and of course, when I was in IEG, Institute of Economic Growth, I had very emphatically mentioned in our document, which we gave to the new government in 2014, May, when the new government came, we emphasized on this. Particularly, I was harping on this when we prepared the document. In that, my emphasis has been, we, the government here in India, should go for massive infrastructure, particularly the irrigation infrastructure in this country, because very many farmers are suffering because of the vagaries of this monsoon. No water. Many a times we have seen large number of farmer suicides because of the failures of the monsoons, because of crop failures, because of huge debt burdens. That is why the government has to look at the ground realities and the basic major reason why the poor farmer, especially the small and marginal farmers, are dying, why they are suffering, why they are not able to come up in their economic lives. That they have to see. And for that, the only best medicine is, and it's a multi-pronged medicine, that is, you should go for massive infrastructure. Massive infrastructure, that is very, very important. So what kind of massive irrigation infrastructure? The best thing is Ganges. I think many of you might have visited Kolkata. I have visited several times Kolkata. If you go to Ramakrishna Ashram there, the mighty river is flowing towards the Bay of Bengal. When it joins Bay of Bengal at the Ganga Sagar, massive amount of river flows inside the sea. Huge wastage of potable water. Why should we let this such a mighty river to just simply get wasted into that Bay of Bengal? Can't we plan to bring that every drop of Ganges water downstream till Kaveri, and then provide huge water facilities right from Bihar, Chhattisgarh, and then your Jharkhand, Orissa, Maharashtra, Telangana, and then Andhra Pradesh, and then Tamil Nadu, Karnataka. Like that, we can provide water to all these states. It is a very fantastic idea, but it requires a strong political will. Of course, you all know, you might have read also, when Indira Gandhi in the 1980s, I think 1984 precise to be, during that time, the irrigation minister K.L. Rao, he was there, and he argued for Ganga Kaveri scheme during that time before the Honorable Prime Minister, the then Honorable Prime Minister Indira Gandhi. But unfortunately, Indira Gandhi said she wanted poor people to be on her side, and she said, "How many crores you want?" She asked the then Minister for Irrigation, KL Rao, and he said around 25,000 crores. During those times, 25,000 crores was a big allocation. So she said, with that 25,000 crores, I will start IRDP scheme through which I can get a lot of fan following and strong electorate base. So she discarded his suggestion of linking Ganges and Kaveri, and she said, I will start the IRDP scheme. This is how the IRDP scheme during those times, maybe the present generation is not aware of that. That came into scene, and it cost this nation around 50,000 crores. And again, in 1999, they wound up that scheme, and new scheme came in the form of SGSY, Swarna Jayanti Gram Swarojgar Yojana. So that is the story. Why I mentioned this story is this basic irrigation infrastructure had we created times before, years before. By this time, many of our farmers, majority of farmers,
mute anundi ante kada.
Pardon, some voice came.
So no, by mistake, I think so someone unmuted, so you can.
Okay, okay. So had this government at least, since 2014 onwards, very many places I have advocated that the river linkage project should be taken up, because it is multifarious in nature, multitudinal benefits it gives. One is it gives irrigation water to the needy places, rainfed areas, and the people can get benefited. They can go for 2 or 3 crops depending upon the availability of water. And next, the en route to that channeling, you can provide water, food, the potable water to the needy population. One is drinking water, and then for industrial purposes, and then for cities, urban areas. So it has multitudinal benefits. So that's why this was expected. And every budget, we expect this kind of a big push for this economy. Unfortunately, governments do not look at this, because this is going to be a long-term project. So every governments, normally they look for immediate benefits in terms of their electoral politics. So that's how India has been suffering because of this kind of a short-sighted, I use the word very carefully, short-sighted electoral politics in this nation. Our democracy, of course, there are so many comments, I don't want to dwell into that area. Unfortunately, even during the budget making exercises also, since last several decades, we have been seeing this kind of sight on the electoral politics takes the major this one, and in the process, our basic needs are not focused. And massive irrigation infrastructure projects across these massive rivers like Brahmaputra, Ganga, Kosi, various flooding rivers are there. There we should go for infrastructure activities, because these will provide quick jobs. Number of jobs will be created. Number of companies will get benefited out of this. So this was expected from this budget, but unfortunately we did not get it. And of course, my expectation was innovation. Our agriculture should become innovative. So innovation in agriculture should be supported. Lots of new startups have to be encouraged in the area of agricultural technology. For that, the government should have focused with some strong funding support, so that new things can come into agricultural sector, and the ultimate benefit should go to these small and medium or agricultural, small and marginal farmers. That is very, very important. And we also expected the promotion of food processing value chains. Value chains play a very important role. If you look at the fast growing economies, particularly in Europe, and even if you look at how Israel has developed, a small nation, but the value chains that it has created for the agricultural sector are exemplary. In that way, the government should focus on value chains, particularly in the area of food processing, so that we can control the wastage of food. A lot of food is getting wasted. Some studies report that around 40% of the agricultural food that is produced is getting wasted, either in transportation or in storage or at the place of harvesting. In many, many places, there is a lot of wastage. If you look at that, it is a huge loss for the nation. So if you provide these kind of value chains, they can stop the wastage of this kind of agricultural products. And also a proper agri ecosystem for food safety initiatives also should be developed in this nation. That was also our expectations. Unfortunately, the government did not give more impetus in that area. And investments in supply chain also. You should bring the private participants in this area. That will also benefit. Of course, the 3 laws, which are now making a lot of news, a lot of hesitation, you all know, I will not explain that. Because of that also, government might have thought it's a complicated area, why I should put my nose into that. In that way, they might have got demotivated rather, I feel so. And agri exports boosting is also required. We should encourage export of agricultural products so that our farmers will get benefited with better pricing and all. Wherever is possible, we should encourage the exports of these agricultural products. And also one more area, what I thought was the loans to the agricultural sector via the NBFCs also should be encouraged. So far, we have seen NBFC spending in the area of, or NBFC finance in the area of automobiles, personal financing, that kind of area. So that should also be diverted towards agricultural needs. That will help a lot in terms of immediate requirements of the farmers, particularly in their agricultural activities. We also should have encouraged the investor involvement in agricultural supply chains. Investors, we should invite the investors like your FDIs in different sectors. In agricultural sectors also, we should encourage so that we can draw or attract good amount of foreign investment, which will give a bigger fillip to our the supply chains, agricultural supply chains. And one more best idea as a financial economist, I feel is the government should create huge capital by way of encouraging tax-free bonds. That kind of investments which are targeted towards agricultural sector can be given away with all these taxations so that we can attract more amount of funding into this agricultural infrastructure. That kind of innovative approaches are required to mobilize the required capital for this kind of requirements. Now let me focus quickly on this, the implications of this agricultural budget, this budget's implications on food and agribusiness ecosystem. And then I will make some comments on that. So one important thing I find is the Operation Green Scheme to boost the cold storage and food processing businesses is going to impact positively on this entire ecosystem, because it will now give scope for new ideas, new startups can come into this area, they can contribute towards this Operation Green Scheme, particularly those 23 food products which the government has identified. This is one positive which I can take from this budget. And the NABARD's initial capital support of 20,000 crores, which the government has announced, will also include a big push to the agricultural infrastructure in this country. And the Krishi Sinchai Yojana, which has got an allocation of around 11,588 crores, will now give a big boost to this sprinkler irrigation, and particularly those businesses which are involved in sprinkler activities. And the sugar export business will also now boom, because a 2,000 crores initial push is now announced by the government. And the 700 crores to technologies involved in crop residue management. This is very important. We can convert this crop residue into energy, bioenergy. So this will also give a boost towards our energy sustainability, the mission of this country. So startups will get benefited in this area, because there's a huge scope for innovating new ideas and new schemes for livestock health and disease control. This is very important. We always say Pashudhan. So if you keep our dhan, Pashudhan, in a very safe way, that is livestock, it will add to our agricultural output. So in that direction, the government has announced around 1,470 crores, and this will give a big boost to the animal pharmaceutical companies. Animal pharmaceutical companies will get benefited with this kind of a new scheme. So overall, I feel this budget, even though the focus was more on infrastructure, it has tried to give the due share to the agricultural sector. However, of course, there are so many views that the government should have focused more on agriculture. But people say the current dynamics of the farmer hesitation, that concentration at Singhu border and around Delhi, that might have dampened this one. But the government economists say, no, the government was more focused on creating a strong infrastructure, especially the transport infrastructure, highways, and also railways, all those things they want to focus, because that will provide more connectivity and it will have a more stronger multiplier effect on the economic activities in the nation. That's why they focused more on this. So overall, this budget is not a great budget for agricultural sector, but I can give as a professor around 7.5 to 8 out of 10 for this particular budget towards this agricultural orientation. I feel now, instead of boring you by continuously talking from this side, I want to take the questions, and in the process, I will give you some more ideas and some more insights so that we can look at this budget in a more systematic and thoughtful way. What do you say?
Thank you so much, sir. Actually, you have given a gist of what all implications that the budget 2021 has on the food and agribusiness ecosystem. But there are a lot of questions now.
That's good.
I personally have a lot of questions, and there are a lot
Very
of
good.
questions that have come up from the panelists, from the participants. Actually, some of the questions that the participants have asked, you have already answered. Like someone had asked about, is there any impetus that this government has given in the budget regarding the export of food and agri products, which you have already answered that not much impetus has been given and it can be given more. That is what you have mentioned. There is one question that I had. Every year we see that this agriculture innovation fund is given a lot of money. What is it basically used for is something I fail to understand. Even this year, a lot of money has been given to the Agriculture Innovation Fund. Would you like to throw some light on that, sir?
Yeah, it's a good question you asked. Always what happens is the government at the policy making level, that means at the budget making level, they have a greater idea that the innovation has to be encouraged, and that's why adequate funding has to be provided. So based on that, the government normally allocates some funding, but unfortunately, still our bureaucracy is still in that old mindset. This bureaucracy has to reform. That's why, as a public policy analyst, I also say the public policy reforms, especially the administrative reforms, has to take place in a very, very swift way and also in a mega way, so that this huge bureaucracy, which is sitting and eating up the huge resources and slowing down the processes of reforms and slowing down the processes of administrative mechanisms, has to be fine-tuned. And particularly coming to your question, what I have seen and I have heard in various seminars and discussions with the government authorities, I find is some of these funds which are meant for innovations, they are getting diverted to different kinds of activities in the same areas. Same areas means related areas. So that's how innovation is not happening, even though it is put on the sheet of the paper, that is the budget. This is one basic problem. That's why we always advocate that there should be an accountability for budget also. Simply making announcement is not enough. There should be accountability, transparency. For example, this budget, let me tell you, is of the size. The budget size is 34.5 lakh crores. 34.5 lakh crores. The previous budget was 30 lakh crores, around 4.5 crores more now. So how this spending, which you have stated in the budget, is being implemented? So that accountability has to come. If that accountability comes, then what happens now? We can easily know whether the funding has properly gone towards the directed areas. For example, innovation, which you asked, whether the funding has gone in the same level to those particular focused areas of innovations, that we can find out. If you look at the past, in the past, we find that much of the funding has been diverted also. from the focused areas to some other areas, depending upon the urgency or depending upon the political decisions at the government level to support the immediate needy sector within that broader area. So this is how sometimes the funding is getting diverted. But my wish, and people like me, they feel that when you have announced innovations, you make it more transparent, create one separate fund, separate agency for it, then all those people who are interested in this area of innovations, they will approach them and take that required funding and start their startup activities or their business activities. So that's how it should run. But unfortunately, in the same spirit, what I mentioned is not happening at that level.
Thank you so much, sir.
Yeah, good morning, Krishna.
Yeah. So, sir, Professor Nilendu Mukherjee, he would like to ask a question.
Yeah, please.
Good morning, sir. This is Nilendu. I'm a faculty here. Sir, actually, in 2014, when Jetli sir was there, basically, so he told that, the farmer income will be, doing the budget allocation in such a way, he would like to go for, that kind of expansion where he would like to give farmers COP 2 plus 50%.
Correct.
So COP 1 was the only cost of production. COP 2 means cost of production plus opportunity cost plus 50% above that. So
Correct.
do you think this budget, there is any allocation which can really bring that farmer income to double as per the vision what we had in 2014?
Yeah, good question. You see, the government's stated intention is to double the farmer's income before 2025. That's what they say. But I don't think it's going to happen. The reason is there are so many hiccups in our agricultural sector. You all know. And I also want to be more frank since we raised this question. Simple math will not achieve the objectives. It is the people who are the stakeholders who have to be more proactive and achieve that simple math of doubling the farmer's income. In this country, you all know there is a lot of exploitation. The big farmer is exploiting the small farmer and the marginal farmers, you should know. But if you say this, the big farmer lobby, the so-called the farmer agitation, farmer lobbies, the farmer unions, they're all for the big farmers. They're all rich fellows. You won't believe, let me share my own experience. In my state in Karnataka, in Shimaga, the surrounding places, the farmers come in Mercedes and Audi cars to the city, the Shimaga city, in the evening to have a cup of coffee in the star hotels. And they are the farmer leaders. They have got massive agricultural assets. They have exploited the local small farmers and marginal farmers. And this is the situation across the whole country.
Yeah.
And
so,
most of this.
Yeah. I just want to interrupt here, sir. Interesting, because then I would like to tell you, sir, 1980s World Bank, do you think India should go for land reform like it has gone for in West Bengal?
You see, land reforms in some of the states, it has happened in this country, we all know. But in some states, the land reforms have not been accepted because it's a federal setup. This is what the problem I was trying to explain to you when I was mentioning that small illustration, how our own people are exploiting our own people. And they always talk goody things. We need to do this, we need to do this, nobody has done this to our farmers. But the same big farmer in every village, he's exploiting his own brethren, the small and the marginal farmers.
Yes, true, sir.
This is very bad. And even the political parties, what they do, they also do the same thing. Because who are running the political parties? These rich farmers and rich crorepati's are the billionaires and the millionaires. So they want to strengthen their own base. In the process, the poor farmer, the marginal farmer, the small farmer is getting affected. For example, let us take the case of these 3 farm bills. Since you have raised this issue, I want to tell about this. Had they not gone for this kind of an agitation, definitely the government would have gone with the rigorous implementation of these 3 farm bills. Then our entire the food and agri business sector would have boomed like anything. I was expecting about 4 or 5 months before when they launched this they passed the acts. We had a discussion in a webinar in IGRO about the impact or the implications of these farm bills. Then we all thought that definitely there will be a huge reform and revolutionary kind of a thing in our economic structure in the entire country, because so long, since several years, this country is suffocated with this kind of a marketing system for the farmers' produce? Why they should be controlled by these farm lobbies? But unfortunately, see how small handful of farmers surrounding Delhi, they are creating problem for the entire nation. And how they are creating problem? They are supported by the foreigners. So in the process, let me complete this, then you can ask the question.
Yes,
so ultimately, what I'm trying to tell you is the policy making is on one side. Implementation of the policies, that is the essence. If that fails, if the policy implementation is not resulting in appropriate results, then we continue with the same problems. That is why the stakeholders have to become more prudent, more ethical, more principled, then automatically the processes will become more faster. For example, let me tell you, this particular 3 farm bills, in case if Punjab is not interested in that, they have already made some modifications there. They have brought some their own state enactments, nullifying the implementation of these 3 farm bills. Then where was the need for this kind of an agitation? If West Bengal is not interested in implementing these farm bills, they can bring their own laws and they can stop it. But instead of doing that, or sometimes they've already done it, but still one more hesitation, why is it required? That means you should understand that, or we the common people should understand that there are some anti-India lobbies working systematically to ensure that these poor people continue to be poor. These farmers whose population is more, they should be always poor, so that this country will be always suffering from poverty, 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 poverty. So these are vested interests, and they are having a systematic approach and strategy to weaken this country. So our people should now awake. They should understand what is good for them, instead of simply following those lobbies and get fooled by those lobbies' words. So this is what the basic understanding the people should understand. Of course, the government has said, coming to the specific question of COP, the MSP provisioning they have made, and MSP rates are very quite high. Even in terms of pure economics, they are not good. As a pure economist, I don't agree with that MSP. But in the larger interest of the agricultural sector in this country, MSP is required right now. Until and unless my farmer becomes more self-sustained, till that time, MSP is very much important, and it should continue. Even though in terms of pure economics, it may not be sounding good, but we all say, yes, in the interest of our farmers, MSP should be there, and it should cover 150% of its cost. So that will continue, as the government has been saying. But still, this kind of a fuss and facade they are creating, and it is harming our poor farmers.
Thank you, sir.
Krishna,
sir, there's one more question.
Nilanduji, we have only 5 minutes. Let us give opportunity.
Krishna, I have one more question to ask actually. Just to
we have only 5 minutes. I would request others to ask.
Yeah, sir. Good morning. This is Professor Shrikant. So there's one question. So if we look at the Agri Export Policy 2018, it has showed that there would be a doubling of agricultural export from the current level that is there, and almost by 2022 and all, they are saying that they would need to achieve $30 billion. And in case if there's a chance they would go for around $100 billion US. So if we look at it, do you think that this target can be achieved seeing the post-COVID condition that is there? It really looks too high enough. May I know like what exactly could be those areas which could give the spin-off effect in the near future to achieve this ambitious target that has been set?
See, particularly to this is a good question which you have asked, and it is more related to productivity. As we in economics, we say your productivity, if it is very high and the efficiency scales are achieved in terms of productivity, you can achieve your target, ambitious target of whatever you want to export. But unfortunately, this government, particularly the NDA government, has been very, very highly ambitious. It sets a very huge targets. Many times they cannot be achievable also. But if you ask them in private, they say that that kind of a hype is required to create an aura so that people will get motivated to work on those areas. That's what their argument is. Maybe in terms of motivational aspects, it's good. But if you go with the numbers, I don't think it will be achievable so easily, because we have basically from the productivity angle, the inputs. What are the inputs to achieve that productivity? High quality seeds, pesticides, and insecticide. All those things are to be provided to the farmer. And at the same time, good quality irrigation facilities and sprinklers, whatever those requirements are there, those inputs are required. Whether the government has been able to ensure the provisioning of all those inputs for the production. If that is done, the farmer can very well achieve those targets. But unfortunately, much of our exports, particularly the agri exports, are dependent on the vagaries of monsoon and also the vagaries of this pests and all. So when they come and attack, then the crop fails. So to protect the crop from that kind of vagaries, there should be a proper mechanism, like the way the Israeli people do. Everything is systematically planned, like a planned execution of an industry. Agriculture is an industry there. In that approach, we have to transform our agriculture. Then we can achieve all such kind of targets, whatever we keep. But unfortunately, in India, it has not been possible to reach that kind of a very highly ambitious target, because the farmer faces number of hurdles, particularly in the area of productivity, in terms of efficiency, in terms of labor, in terms of basic inputs like energy, that is power, water, all these things he faces troubles and hurdles at very many stages. So these hurdles have to be removed so that the productivity will increase and the ambitious targets can be achieved in a faster pace. A huge amount of reformation is required in the agricultural sector to achieve these kind of targets.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Before we can go ahead with another question, we are having very less time. I would want to make an announcement. So next month in March, before 20th of March, we would be conducting a webinar, a panel discussion on farm bills. So I request everyone to please register with our talk so that you would be informed about it. So the panel discussion would include government officials as well as industry people, and they'll be talking on the 3 farm bills. No sides would be taken, but it would be an open discussion where you would get an opportunity to ask a question. So sir, with this, I would like to open the floor to others. If there is anyone else who would like to ask a question, we have 3-4 minutes left. If there is no one else, then I would request Neelendu ji to complete his follow-up.
I will ask one question.
Yes, Durga Prasad sir. Yes.
I am Professor Durga Prasad, sir. I just want to ask one simple question: relation between APMCs and the FPOs. Actually, FPOs have been formed because APMCs are not performing. Now, in the budget, additional investment on APMCs, will it be really helpful?
See, farmer producer organizations are entirely different from that of the agricultural produce marketing committees. The APMCs have become almost a kind of a government infrastructure or government machinery. And you all know, I need not again go into the details how corrupt they are, because I have seen personally the way the APMCs function across the country, and a lot of administrative dumb and bureaucracy, how the farmer suffers there, how the middlemen, I see that those agents, they function, and how the farmers are exploited. Very miserable it is. I don't think as a sincere citizen, forget about me as an economist, let me don the role of a simple common citizen. I don't love this APMC mechanism at all. See, for example, a very interesting thing, Kerala doesn't have the APMCs.
Yes.
But the same Communist Party goes there and puts their agenda and they say, we want APMCs to exist. So that's why they are very prudent people. They don't want APMC. You see, because you see, any infrastructure mechanism or any kind of a setup, if you bring in, if it is helpful to the people, the targeted people, you run that show. Otherwise, why do you want to put these parasites? The people who live on that APMCs, they're all parasites. They don't contribute anything to anybody. They simply live on the farmers. They are sucking the blood of the hard working farmer. And why we need that kind of a system? Why this law should be there? Why the farmer should not sell his produce at any place wherever he wants? Let him do, let him decide. He's a producer. Whether we have such kind of guidelines for the other industries also? No. Other industry fellows, they will decide where to sell and where not to sell and when to sell and when not to sell. But why only for farmers, the government and the APMC should decide when to sell and when not to sell and where to sell and where not to sell? This is highly unjustified. But the same big farmer lobby, using that pious holy word called farmer, they will fool the same farmers. This is very pathetic. And APMCs are entirely different and FPOs are entirely different. Let me explain this. Farmer produce organizations. Let us say there are pomegranate farmers in one particular area. They will all come together, maybe some 50 farmers or 100 farmers. They will come together and they will form a kind of a association which will have a stronger bargaining power when they deal with the industry, when they deal with the traders. For example, recently I read in the newspapers in Kurnool area and also in Telangana, it seems, in some areas, the rice farmers, they have come together. And in Karnataka, bordering this Andhra Pradesh, particularly in that Sindhanur area, I have seen, this Reliance retail, they have gone to the Farmers Producers Association of the Sona Masuri rice cultivators in Raichur district, Sindhanur and all those places. They have bought thousands and thousands of tons of this rice from them directly. So huge margins they could get. The farmers could get benefited. Had they been forced to go to the APMCs, just imagine how many troubles they might have faced, how much of problems they might have faced, how much of extortion they might have faced. So farmers producers organizations are voluntary associations. They are not like permanent structures like these APMCs where some fellows sit there, some office is there, they will charge so many things. No, it is voluntary association. They will decide how much to send, how much to sell and when to sell and how to sell and what to sell. Everything they will decide and they will directly communicate and transact with the traders or the buyers or from the industry. So that's a good thing. Farmers produce organizations, if you look at the studies, I have just glanced at some of the studies about these farmer produce organizations. They are doing a marvelous job and the farmers are getting benefited because of their own involvement in that farmer producer organizations. So in that way, APMC structures and FPOs are different. APMCs are now going for creating more larger infrastructure, especially storage, warehousing, those kind of things they want to focus. That's why the government has said it will open up around 1 lakh crores to these APMCs and good performing APMCs. And let me clarify, there are very good APMCs also, but always good numbers are less. You all know that. So good performing APMCs, which are doing a yeoman service to the farmers, can get access to these kind of funds from the central government, and they can expand their infrastructure, whether it's storage or food processing, all those kind of things they can do. So this is the major difference between FPOs and the APMCs. So in that context, FPOs are doing their job and the APMCs, you all know what they are doing.
So thank you so much, sir. We have crossed 11:15. With your permission, can we continue for 5 more minutes? Or
yeah, you can.
So Nilenduji, we can end with your question because there is no one else.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks a lot.
And after that, I have one small comment to make. So yeah, over to you.
Sir, I have one question to ask you, sir. According to you, sir, do you think our farmers need one nation, one market, or one village, multiple markets?
See, simple thing, if you look at the trends of economic growth across the whole world, let me start my answering to your question with an example of the European Union. When you make a larger market, it is always beneficial for the producers. If you make smaller markets, they are not beneficial for the producers. So if you make one India, one market for the farmers, it is always good because the farmer can identify where, in which market or in which place he can sell and he can make use of it. If you compartmentalize them, then you will be putting those farmers or the producers into certain compartments and you will confine them to those areas. In the process, they cannot make the advantages of arbitrage opportunities or price advantages. Whereas in the European Union, the farmers are flourishing. Why? A large market. In the same way, India is no less to Europe. So all these states should come together to provide a large market platform to the farmers. Let the farmer decide where he wants to sell. It should be under his discretion. So one nation, one market is a better idea. And I'm saying this in the context of overall economic growth. Overall economic growth. I'm keeping the interest of the entire nation. I'm keeping the interest of the consumers. I'm keeping the interest of the producers, that is the farmers as well. So this kind of a holistic vision, holistic ideation processes towards the development of economy is very important. And if you look at the stories of the evolution of greater markets across the developed nations, you find these things. Wherever the markets have integrated, there the producers have got benefited. And that's the same logic I'm arguing here. For India also, we should have one nation, one market, so that anywhere let the farmer sell his produce according to his discretion, like the way an industrial producer decides where to sell and when not to sell and where not to sell. In the same logic, let the farmer also decide. He should be given with his rightful that privilege or discretion of selling his produce at his will and wish. So that's why one nation, one market looks more beneficial in the larger interest of the nation. Instead of making small markets, compartmentalizing them, it will be very difficult.
So thank you so much, sir. I think so we have taken enough of your time. So sir, Food and Agri Business School, we run a postgraduate diploma in management, Agri Business Management program, which is recognized by ASCT. And we have 2 batches at present, the 1921 and the 2022 batch. And a new batch will be starting in 21-23, for which the admissions are going on. So is there any final words or any wisdom you would like to share with these ABM students? Some of them are still there. So would you like to share some few words, and then we can close with that? Yeah.
It's a good point you suggested to conclude this talk. I'm very happy about this. I always encourage the young students to be more innovative. If you have to make Food and Agri Business School, your FABS, a great institution, it is the students that make that institution great. You should be more innovative, think innovatively. We all should become Einsteins. Einstein was one fellow who started questioning everything. If you do not question, simply thinking that my ideology is this, I will not question this ideology. I come from communist ideology, I will not question communist ideology. I come from so-and-so ideology, I will not question it. No. A good human being is one who questions everything. And India is the land of seekers. We have never simply believed anything and everything in this nation since last 10,000 years. Everything we have questioned. That is why we are so diverse in nature. We have never dictated to our people that you should do only this thing. Because basically, Indianness is about seeking. Seeking means not diksha. It is seeking means exploring, identifying, knowing what is new, what is correct. So this seekingness is always great. And this comes with questioning. When you start questioning, you start seeking the truth. So innovation is one area which always promotes such kind of a seeking ability in the minds of the people. So if our business school students start thinking innovatively, not getting adhered to certain old ideas and old ideologies, it's always good. People should be innovative. When there is innovation, then only this economy can grow, this civilization can grow, and evolution of human societies will happen. So food and agribusiness ecosystem can flourish, can achieve or attain its top level, provided you, the students of food and agribusiness, become more innovative, become more entrepreneurial. So innovativeness and entrepreneuring abilities, both should go hand in hand. That only will take you to higher levels, and that only will help you to serve this huge nation in a very meaningful way. I feel with the way your your institution is supporting you, you can think in those areas. Nowadays, because of this technological advantage, you can now come with new kind of ideas, new startups, and there is a huge encouragement for startups, the income tax exemptions, lot of I see encouragement is happening across the country. There is a huge new wave of the startups are happening. So agri startups and technology related startups for agriculture sector should be encouraged. And that should be taken up by you people. And you should herald this. You should be the harbingers of agricultural innovation in this country. Particularly, you all know Hyderabad and particularly the Telugu speaking people are more innovative and entrepreneurial in terms of agriculture and any kind of entrepreneurial activity. So true to that spirit, the Telugu spirit, you should now work in that direction and become highly innovative and emerge as greater entrepreneurs. Because entrepreneurship is one which creates more jobs. Simply becoming an employee of some other organization is not a great thing of life. But if you create jobs and if you provide employment to the fellow citizens of this nation, that is a greater contribution to this society. I wish you, the students of FABS, will emerge in that direction and you will start becoming great entrepreneurs and innovators who can give more jobs to the fellow citizens of this nation. With that kind of a wishful thinking, I conclude my talk. Thank you very much for all of you for having me to speak to you about this budget and also some insights about the implications of this budget on this food and agri business.